Herbal first aid. Well, today we're going to explore a little bit of what herbal first aid is about and what herbal medicines might be in your herbal first aid kit. These two large toolboxes have been converted into my herbal first aid kit for traveling in a vehicle and or for conferences, symposiums, for large groups, when large groups of people gather together. Everybody's first aid kit can and will be a little bit different, but mine is pretty comprehensive for gatherings of 15 to 20 or so people, and I try to have a lot of medicines that match a whole variety of potential problems and illnesses and situations that might arise, and we will explore these kits a little bit and talk about a few of the medicines that are in here. Kit here. I'd like to mention two reference books: The Herbal Medic by Sam Kaufman with Katia Lemon and David House, and Where There Is No Doctor, a Village Health and Handbook. These two are amazing, two amazing reference books that can lay a great foundation, especially Sam's book, which is really one of the first of its kind to weave herbal medicine into paramedic-like procedures, and cannot recommend it high enough. Both of these books are indispensable in allowing you to understand how to treat many first aid situations and many emergency situations, and being able to incorporate herbal medicine into those emergency situations. The Herbal Medic book has a great section on emergency childbirthing, as well as Where There Is No Doctor. There's just a wealth of information on how to treat illnesses, diseases, emergency situations, where, especially when there is no paramedic, when there is no doctor, and self-reliance is all you have. And so these two books form the basis of, like, along with EMT courses, paramedic courses, Red Cross first aid courses, as much knowledge as you can acquire within the realm of the classic concepts of first aid, and then with your herbal knowledge, you can find ways to incorporate the herbs to treat emergency situations. You can see that my my herb kit is laden with all kinds of herbal medicines and tools. This one here is just packed with things that are sorted out. I love these cosmetic and or pencil bags. This is a pencil pen bag that you can pick up at just about anywhere where they sell school supplies, and this allows us to quickly access groups of medicines for, like, say, nervines or sedative plants, or my essential oils are contained in their own separate bags, so I know where they're at and can grab them, and I can see everything really quickly, because sometimes in an emergency situation, it's just, there's a lot going on, and I don't necessarily need to be rooting through 50 different tincture bottles. I have a lot of individual tinctures, and then I carry a bag that has empty bottles, different sizes, 1 ounce, 2 ounce, half ounces, and then blank labels, and I have pens and tape, and I'm able to, make formulas on the spot. That's why I have so many different tinctures. But here's a group of plants that kind of exemplifies one of the first things that you might end up having to deal with. Here is a group of plant medicines that I use for treating shock. And shock is usually a component of almost every first aid situation, as well as chronic illnesses and diseases, which I'll talk about in a moment. But basically, there are two categories of shocks, types of shock. There's hypovolemic, which is the shock that occurs when there's blood loss, and for some people it could be a little, it could be a lot. And then there's the psychogenic types of shock, which come from injuries that create lots of pain and mental confusion. And this is the type of shock I end up treating the majority of the time with these particular plant medicines. Rescue Remedy being one of the common plant medicine combinations that are used to treat shock and to calm the spirit and calm the body, and in a sense, I believe a component of shock in most chronic illnesses and diseases, as well as emergency situations, is that there is literally a fragmentation of the spirit body, the emotional body, and the physical body in when you have severe shock, severe trauma, severe surprises, whether it's from cutting your finger, or whether it's a bee sting, or whether you just got in an automobile accident and you don't have any apparent injuries, but your physical body, the best I can describe it in many respects is your physical body fragments for a moment in time. And I believe now more than ever before that this is a component of many chronic illnesses and diseases. Somewhere along the way, our three ethereal bodies, or two ethereal bodies and one physical body, have become fragmented, separated, and are no longer united. Rescue Remedy is an amazing remedy for reuniting the physical, the spiritual, and the emotional body. And the spiritual body can be also considered like the psychological body, perhaps. Some people are really respond very well to burning a little white sage or cedar in helping to calm them, especially with the psychogenic types of shock. One of my favorite and perhaps most profound one, which usually is a class all by itself, is Pulsatilla. And many species of Pulsatilla can be used. This one is an Anemone tuberosa, one of my desert species, but there are many species of Pulsatilla, aka pasque flower, that can be used in a very similar fashion. A very strong medicine. Some books actually listed as somewhat poisonous or toxic. The dosage range is usually 1 to 10 drops. Usually in a shock situation with Pulsatilla, you start with 1 drop, 2 drops, 3 drops, a very small amount. Essential oils are very good for treating shock. Here's a little bottle of lavender essential oil, and this one is very calming to the spirit and brings clarity and peace of mind. It can help reunite these fragmented bodies, the physical, spiritual, and emotional body. There's a whole variety of different herbs. Here's a glycerite, which can be used with children, low alcohol content. And this has got passion flower, skullcap, lavender, hops, wild oats in a glycerin base. This is really nice for treating shock in situations where it's not necessarily life-threatening, but you want to bring the person back out of their surprise, out of their shock state. And sometimes we use herbal nervines or sedative plants, calming plants that have a relaxing but also focusing aspect to them. And both the books, The Herbal Medic by Sam Kaufman and Where There Is No Doctor by David Werner, go into great detail about treating the various forms of shock. Some people might think that herbal first aid is only regulated to or can only be used to treat minor illnesses and minor little things, and that's absolutely true. But as your knowledge base grows, here's an example where one time a person had a was stung by a bee, and they had a history of being extremely allergic, and they did not have their EpiPen or epinephrine injection. And so, here we were, in a situation that they didn't have their EpiPen to inject themselves to deal with the anaphylactic shock. So I used a combination of, I gave them couple drops of Chinese ephedra, which kind of mimics the action of an EpiPen to some degree. And then I gave them a couple drops of pulsatilla and had them, rub lavender oil in their hand and breathe deeply. And these three medicines pulled them out of an anaphylactic shock. These three plant medicines. The Chinese ephedra acted similar in a similar fashion as their EpiPen would have, helping them to breathe and helping them to steady their pulse. Chinese ephedra is an amazing plant medicine to have into your in your herbal first aid kit. These days, it's a regulated plant, and so you have to have a prescription or have to acquire it from a doctor or an acupuncturist and have permission to use it. The pulsatilla is this calming, centering, really great for serious life-threatening shock. And of course, lavender oil is a very calming, centering essential oil, which actually helps with breathing. So I used very small amounts, and I sat with this person, and then I burned some white sage around us after I had ministered these three plant medicines, and they made it through their anaphylactic shock. I think we had to give them a couple more drops of Chinese ephedra after a few minutes just so their breathing returned back to normal. But that was a perfect example of a real first aid situation that normally would require a pharmaceutical drug and or paramedic-like action, and it was treated solely and with plant medicines. So, normally my herbal first aid classes last days and days, many hours. It's a constant evolutionary process. I'm constantly acquiring new medicines, new knowledge, new ways of using my plant medicines in emergency situations, and this is just a brief glimpse of the world and the concepts of herbal first aid. For those of you who are taking my Voyage Botanica 100-hour online class, we will cover one concept of herbal first aid every class session when we come together. It's a like I said, it's a very long-term teaching endeavor to cover all the different topics of how to use herbs in herbal first aid situation, but pretty much over the next 20 weeks or so, you can look forward to having a small class each and every time we get together that covers herbal first aid, so that by the time we're done, we will have a pretty comprehensive understanding of how to merge the world of herbal medicine and the world of first aid paramedic concepts together, so that we can take herbs to beyond treating chronic illnesses and normal infections, bacterial or viral infections. We can take them into a life-saving category, which is how I practice herbal first aid, and it's a very ongoing process. Next time, I think we'll talk about how to use datura leaf for asthma attacks.